Recording in progress.
Good afternoon. Welcome along. My name's Alice, and today with yoga as embodiment, we're going to do a yin practice. So we'll get right onto it. For this practice, it would be nice to have a blanket or two, and then just sitting on the edge of your blanket, bring the soles of your feet together, knees out to the side. You can feel free to support under the knees, perhaps a block or two. And just once you find your footing, your sitting, I'll turn to face you here now. You can slowly lean forward and come into a forward fold. Fully allowed to let your head hang here. And just take a few breaths. You can make them as deep as you like. And with the practice of yin, we have what's called the 3 tattvas. So 3 principles, 3 focuses. And the first is that you come into a posture like you have here, butterfly. And you come into the point where you find enough of an edge. Enough of a sensation where you can stay for a while. But you also know you're not pushing your boundaries. And then the second is that you find stillness. Just slowing any unnecessary movement to a pause. And then finally, you just let the time go by. And within that, you're welcome to focus on your breath. Lingering a little longer on your exhale. And it's very likely that you'll notice while your body is seeking to not move and be still and quiet, that very much the mind is not in that same place. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be. Just by being still and letting the time go by is just this act of letting go. So finding one more breath here. And then slowly inhale, bring yourself upright, walking your hands up towards you, just pausing in an upright position. You're welcome to change the structure of your legs if you want to. We're going to come into a hip stretch. I'm going to do a series of hip stretches on one side, and then we move to the other side. So taking your right leg here and moving it back behind you. You can stay sitting up on something if you find that's helpful. So your right leg is behind you, so from the side. And that foot can be as far back or as far in as feels supportive. And that's the same with the front leg, forward or as far as in towards you or anywhere in between that feels supportive. Just placing your hands down on the floor to lift your hips up and then touch them back down. And again, finding an upright spine for a moment. We're going to fold forward. But before we go there, just settling the hips where they are. And then finding your forward fold, just leaning over your legs. You can be quite low down, you can be far up. You may have a bolster or a cushion that you can lay out in front of you and lay your body down on that. So the target here is the front leg, the left hip. Make sure you don't feel this in your knee, and if that's the case, move that leg closer in, or perhaps even pop your blanket underneath the front knee. So give yourself a moment to find what's right, to find your edge. To find a place where you feel just right, that kind of Goldilocks spot of not too much, not too little, and that's different for everybody. Give yourself full permission to be still, to not move. Not unnecessarily. So of course, there's movement going on when you breathe. As the body starts to relax, there'll be some letting go movement. More just to try and resist your fidgets. And let the time go by. So we're more or less 3 minutes in each pose. So just let it pass. Resting with your breath if you like. Lingering on your exhales. So we are focusing on hips, stretching through the hips, which I find often can be quite intense, and that's not a bad thing. But by exploring your edge, the place where you come to feel your sensations, you can really begin to learn and understand what feels like too much for you, and also what feels too little. Over the time that you're here, if you find you manage to be still and letting the time kind of let you go, then perhaps you're in a good space. And then slowly, if you're folded forward, just come up onto your hands. If you've got anything in front of you, you're welcome to keep it there. You might just want to move it for transition purposes. From here, we come into what's called a pigeon or a swan. So just taking your back leg and extend it straight back behind you. You can lift off your front hip here if you like. So your hips are more kind of really pointing straight down towards the floor. Again, if you feel this in your knee, then just keeping your sit bone on the floor, or just making sure that front foot is quite close in towards your groin. So moment upright, you might want to have your bolster in play again. or just a cushion or a block or something to support your head. And when the time feels right, just cascading yourself down towards the floor. You do not have to reach the floor. You can turn your head any way that feels best. And just checking before we take that kind of further depth of the pose that you're in the kind of right Goldilocks spot. You feel a good amount of an edge of sensation, but you're not feeling any pinching. You don't feel any sharpness around your knee. And then becoming still as much as you can. And it's not that movement is wrong or a bad thing. It's very, very beneficial for our bodies, in fact. But in this particular practice, what we're trying to do is unwind the tendency of the body to be constantly moving. And that's why we stay a little longer in the poses, letting the time go by, resisting the urges to change and fix things, and just being with what's here: breath, floor, body. So if you find you are distracted easily, which would be very normal, rest with your breath and linger on the exhale. Really feel that exhale move through you. And of course, perhaps the edge changes as you move through the shape. So you may find you can go a little deeper just by moving your back leg back further, or perhaps you ease off and move forward. And then hands coming back to the ground, if they're not there already. And just gently press yourself up. From here, just drop down onto your left hip. So you're literally sitting on your left butt cheek. And then bring your back leg all the way around. And see if you can bring that foot on the outside of what was your front leg. So you've got your right foot on the outside of your left leg. And then maybe seeing if knees stack on top of each other. It doesn't have to be the case. And particularly in this case, if you feel really lopsided, just extend your left leg, your bottom leg out. And sitting up on something really helps here. So I'm sitting on a blanket, just like we did at the beginning. If you happen to have any funkiness in your knees in any way, then find something just to pop underneath your knees. So you could use a block, might find it a bit high, or a cushion, or a couple of folded blankets. So again, the focus is the hip, so we don't want this to come into the knee. You can be fully upright, or once again, folding forward, either hands down, maybe they don't reach the floor, put something underneath your hands instead. So we're looking for a comfortable edge, point of sensation where you feel like there's a bit of a stretch happening into the hips, possibly into the deeper parts of your thighs as well, maybe even around your lower back, definitely not in your knee or knees. So always remember you can extend your bottom leg out and be sitting upright. You don't have to be with your face on the floor. And then finding stillness. Doesn't mean you're not allowed to move if you find you need to come out or adjust something, that's fine, but not unnecessary movement. Just let the time go by. As if you're unraveling this ball that you've been tightening and gripping onto. Lingering with your breath. And of course, you may find over time you need to adjust the shape. So everything is done with intention. So it's not mindless or thoughtless. And then as slowly as you came in, coming out, and just releasing your legs fully, removing anything underneath you or on your mat, and just lie down on your back. The full rebound, arms by your sides or resting on your body. And just see if you can feel a difference between left and right sides. Noticing how your breath is flowing. And then if you like, you can hug your legs in, give yourself a rock side to side. I'm going to come back up to a seated position, so you can either rock forwards and back or to your left or right, coming back up to your seat. Again, coming back to where we started, soles of the feet together, knees out to the side, sitting up on something if that is helpful for you. So that's really useful if you feel very slumped. And then moving your left foot back. Drawing the right leg in. And so this is called deer pose, thinking of your legs as deer antlers. Place your hands on the floor, lift your hips up, and then touch back down just to reset the glutes. And again, you can decide how far in your feet are towards you. So the further away, usually the more intense it is on the front hip. So the front foot further away. Closer in, perhaps a little easier. And then you can have your bolster or something in front of you. And just whatever works, coming forward, hands all the way down. There's no right or wrong. Just take yourself to that point where you feel enough of that edge, of that hip stretch, sensation that you identify as manageable, perhaps a little uncomfortable, but not painful. And once you get there, it can take a while, find stillness. Just give your body a chance to not move and see what happens. Let the time pass while you keep your attention where you are. So working with your breath maybe, or focusing on your body or sounds in the room. Just give your body a chance to release. Feeling the breath moving out of you. Perhaps noticing what that does to your shoulders and your hips. And then just slowly walking your hands back towards you. So I'm just going to turn. So now we extend the left leg back behind us. So extending your back leg back. You'll lift up off your front hip. Maybe move your left leg back a little more. And then you can be upright or you can be folded in. And again, just checking, you don't want this in your knee. So you can either put something underneath your right bum or just sitting down on that right hip again, or move the foot in closer towards you. So you've got less of a rotation. Support underneath you or not, high up, propped up on your hands, or low down, or anywhere in between. So looking for that point of sensation, just enough so you don't fall asleep. Taking a moment to fully relax your face. Important when you're working with hips. And then finding stillness. Let the time go by. So just do nothing for a minute and a half now. Let everything just happen. Sighing out if you find that helpful. And placing your hands down if they're not there already to push yourself up slowly. Lowering down onto that front hip, lowering down onto the right butt cheek. Removing anything if it's in the way. And then swinging that back leg all the way around to find the foot on the other side of your right leg. Maybe seeing if you can get that foot all the way around so then your knees are on top of each other. And again, too much pressure in the knee, then of course, simply straighten your bottom leg out. Sitting up on something again if that's helpful. So it could be a blanket like mine, or it could be even higher on a block or a big sturdy cushion. Sitting upright or leaning forward once again. So each pose we're in is 3-minute holds so far. So finding a point where you feel sensation. And if that bottom leg is extended, you probably will also get a stretch through the back of that bottom leg, calf or hamstring. Just let that be. And then just still your body. And this can be really interesting just to notice how much movement we feel drawn to and consider whether it actually serves us. The fidgets and kind of tics we might have. And within all of that, feeling the edge, being still, we just let the time do the work for us here. So you don't have to do anything. Come into a shape. You stay for a while. You see if you go deeper or if you stay in the same spot or if you come out sooner. All senses of duality, right and wrong, kind of just drop away. Because you just are where you are. Nowhere else to be. It'd be nice to take a few deep breaths. And again, just resting your attention on the breath out as this sensation of release. This experience of, and slowly coming up. Unravel your legs, and once again, come and lie down on your back. And don't be surprised if you find this challenging. Probably notice every now and then, or maybe more than that, that I am moving or adjusting things or checking I'm still on camera. And that's not a bad thing, it's just something to learn from. But when you notice, you come back still, steady body, and you're just here. Right here. So once again, if you want, hug your legs in, or just in any way, rocking your legs side to side so the feet can be on the floor for that or off the floor. Coming up for one more pose. So whether that's rocking side to side or forward and back to bring yourself back up. And we're coming into a seated position again. This time again, sit up on something. It does make life easier, which is a nice thing to do. Extending your legs out to the side. So in some cases, some days, I feel this around my knee, particularly on my left side. So if it feels better to just put some supports under your thighs, I've got blocks here, maybe you've got a couple rolled up towels that work. Just takes the pressure out of the knees. Again, it's not a knee stretch, it's a hip stretch. And in this case, also an inner hamstring stretch. So you can be upright. Sometimes that's enough to get into the legs. Or as we've done, you can fold forward. If you want to, you can fully let your head hang. If you do have a bolster or some kind of cylindrical kind of cushion, just put it in front of you, sort of angled towards you, and then rest your forehead on it. No hands. You want it to be relatively stable so it doesn't fall. I'm just supporting your elbows with it. And you've got the idea now. Find your edge, point where you feel enough. Find stillness. And let the time go by. So I'll be quiet from now on. Just explore what happens. And you can slowly meander your way up. And just taking a moment to fully lean back on your hands, just pausing upright. The precursor and the post-cursor, what happens before and after each pose, is also part of the pose. So you might want to give your legs a little shake side to side. Maybe bend your knees and rock your knees side to side, moving things if they're in the way for that. And then we'll come into a Shavasana position. I want to offer a slight variation to what you might be used to is a legs up the wall. So if you're new to that, then you feel free to watch me. Or if you know what you're doing, just go right ahead and go into that. So for legs up the wall, I'm just going to basically sit sideways towards the wall. And then you'll turn around so your legs lift up and your back is on the ground. He's hoping this wall hanging doesn't fall down on top of me. And depending on what feels best in your hips, your butt might be fully flush to the wall or it might be quite far out from the wall. If you feel like the surface underneath you is a little too hard, then grab one of your blankets and just slide it underneath your bum. You just lift your hips up and slide it underneath. I'm going to stay here because I am here. You might like something underneath your head. I'll just keep track of time. So this is your Shavasana. Arms relaxed. Maybe you close your eyes. And just feel your body for a moment. Whole body. And let everything you feel, anything that's going on inside you or around you, just let it be exactly as it is. Be still and let the time go by. If you feel any resistance or a bit of a heaviness in your body and you feel that you could release it, just extend your exhale, perhaps sigh out. And then eventually just let that breath come back to a smooth, natural rhythm. The idea is that we release the need to influence what happens. We come into a here and now place. Get to observe what goes on. And if your legs are up the wall and you're really happy there, just stay there. Or if you feel that it's a good time to transition out, just bend your knees and draw them down towards your chest. Maybe your feet are on the wall, maybe they're not, doesn't matter. And just slowly roll to one side, curling up in a ball. You might want to put your arm underneath your head or use your head support underneath your head. Just pausing on the side. So again, how we step into the practice and how we leave it is just as important as the postures and practice itself. Slowly bringing yourself up. And if you're wanting to fully transition out of your practice and you're just lying flat on your back, same exit strategy. Just bend your knees, curl to one side. Take your time to come up to a seat. Sitting on something, any structure for your legs that feels right. Just observe your body again. And this 3 tattvas, find your edge, be still, and let time go by, can be very helpful in situations that are not a yoga pose, where you feel like that you are pushed to your edge. It can be in relationship and your work, just the general life circumstances that come and go. And within those events, we can be still for a while, or as long as feels appropriate. And just let the events unfold for themselves. Sighing and breathing out when we feel a little overstimulated. So I hope you've enjoyed this practice as much as I have. Thank you for joining me. Namaste.